everyone. I'm going to wait a little bit to see, make sure there's some people here first. But while I'm waiting, I hope you're all having a good spring. It's really nice weather here. I've been enjoying it, but I've had a few things to do around the house that's kind of kept me inside, but that's all right. I intend on going outside and enjoying this lovely weather once I'm finished chatting with you. Hello. Let me know when you're here. Say hi in the chat and make sure, let me know you can hear me. That'd be great. Appreciate the thumbs up. Biochemistry debunks corona. Welcome. Nice to see you. You're new here. It's good. It's good to see some new faces, and it's good to see some regulars. Natasha, hello. Nice to see you. Welcome. I missed you guys last week. It was really a weird experience not being here, but I did need the time. I needed a bit of a break. To be honest, I'm really tired. I'm exhausted, and I just have to take my breaks when I can. But I think I might take some time off in May because it's my birthday and it's kind of a big one. So I'm going to take a little bit of time off then. I don't know yet when, and hopefully I'll have some posts to put up in the meantime, but I don't know if I can keep up. Mary Cronin, hi, good to see you. So yeah, we have some really good weather. How's everybody doing? What's happening in your neck of the woods? What's new? What are you dealing with? I don't know if there is something going on with corona right now, because the last little while I have been, hold on. That's better. The last little while I've been going to the store and I've been seeing people wearing masks again. And I went to one grocery store and there was a sign on the wall that said, stay 6 feet apart. I was like, are we doing this again? Is this still a thing? Is this still happening? I don't know. I'm so far detached from it right now. I don't know what the deal is. So I don't know what's going on with other areas of the world, but that's what's happening here. Oh, that's nice. I like it when people come together and they are like, hey, go check this channel out. Thanks for recommending Mary to my channel, Natasha. That's very kind of you. So yeah, what's going on with you? How are you doing? What's new? What are you dealing with? If you're here, just say hi in the chat. If you're not one to talk, just say hi. Let me know you're here. There's no obligation to say anything or ask any questions or anything, but it would be nice if you did, because it's kind of why we're here. Glenn's here. Hi, Glenn. Good to see you. So give this video a thumbs up, please, so that people can see it. It helps with the algorithm. And I hate asking. It just got to play the YouTube game a little bit, you know. Something's off. Maybe it's the sunshine outside. Anyway, 10 people here. If you just got here, say hello. Let me know you're here. So, seen the movie Cloud Atlas. I did see Cloud Atlas years ago. It was weird. I don't remember very much about it. So I think I saw it 2017 or 18 or something. And so I was aware of certain truths were shown in that film, but I don't remember very much about it. I just remember thinking it was really weird, and I did not enjoy it that much. I don't know, maybe I'd enjoy it again if I watched it now. But why do you ask? What would you like to talk about that film in particular? Overwhelming. What about it was overwhelming? how we are different characters in different timelines. Okay, so maybe I need to watch it again. Reincarnation themes. Yeah, I'll watch it again. I mean, this is the beauty of it. When you change your perception and you learn more about this place, you see a lot more in these films and get a lot more out of it. So sometimes you'll watch something and not see, well, obviously, I mean, you won't see things that I would see now. And I know there's been times where I've watched certain films or television shows and it sort of affected me emotionally, but I couldn't put into words why. And so I could probably go back and watch them and understand a little bit better now why. Or maybe I can't, I don't know. But yeah, that sounds like something I'd like to see again. Maybe all of the characters on stage being aspects of ourselves. They actually said that? Cool. Yes, Back to the Future means so much more now. Yeah. I loved Back to the Future when I was younger. It was one of my favorite films. I was a big fan of Michael J. Fox, and my sister and we just loved that film. But now that I look at it, I see it so completely differently, and it's such a powerful movie. I'll probably love that film forever. So yeah, if Cloud Atlas actually says all of that blatantly, it's definitely worth rewatching. That's really cool. I love it when they spell it out. And it's funny because I don't know. I want to do an experiment because I don't know whether it's my perception that makes me think that films are a little bit more blatant about the truth, or if films are becoming more blatant now. So, I mean, I watch a film like, obviously Star Wars is pretty blatant. Back to the Future is pretty blatant now that I see it, but so that's more perception. And Don't Worry Darling seems pretty blatant to me. But I wonder if I went back to, say, the 20s and 40s, if films were just as blatant and we just didn't notice, or if it's more obvious now. Any movie buffs of the oldies, like the 40s and 30s? Anybody in the chat know anything about those types of films? Can shed some light on it? So yeah, like there's been a couple of shootings. There was a shooting today and there was a shooting a few days ago, one in Kentucky and one in Alabama. The Kentucky one was in a bank, and Alabama was a Sweet 16. So we have another Sweet 16. And I already did a decode on a Sweet 16 party that was really actually very interesting and quite obvious with the codes and everything. But I say it's obvious now because I've done decode, but when I was looking at it, it wasn't all that obvious. But it's interesting that there's another Sweet 16, and this Kentucky one with the bank is weird. I don't see too much super obvious about it, other than the fact that it was 333 Main Street. I mean, that's obvious. Broken glass in a bank. I would have to look at it. I mean, it's not like some of them are so obvious that I don't really have to do any digging, but I always have to do digging to find more information. It's not like it's so in my face that I can just sit here and prattle it off. Path of Pinkstone, good to see you. Welcome. Metropolis is an old movie that's pretty interesting. Yeah, that's the one that comes to mind. And it's funny because I remember as a child or relatively young watching it thinking it was very odd. And Frankenstein is another one I think of Those are pretty telling. So I kind of want to go back and watch those and maybe do a decode on those, but it's kind of in the queue. It's gonna have to wait. Yeah, Metropolis. I remember watching that, thinking how odd it was and how oddly futuristic it was for that era. There was a lot about it that was very surprisingly futuristic. And one of the things that struck me, yesterday I was watching the Mrs. Mavel, and for those of you who don't know, she's a comedian, a stand-up comic in the 60s, and so like early 60s, late 50s. And so it was kind of unheard of for women to do stand-up comedy, but also unheard of for women to to be as aggressive and vocally open, especially about her personal life and sex and that sort of thing. So it's not, I don't think it's anything true to life, but it seems to be sort of loosely based on Amy Sherman Palladino, who did Gilmore Girls, something. It resonates that it's something to do with her life. So maybe there's some truth in it. But anyhow, I bring it up because while I was watching it, she, the Mrs. Maisel, she went to drop off a magician at the airport, and he was afraid of flying, because he's like, it doesn't make any sense why the planes stay up in the air. I'm not going to fly. So he was terrified of flying, and this was like 1962. And commercial airlines and commercial flights was really quite new up until the 70s, which didn't really occur to me because, it's been around my whole life. It's something that's very common to me, just to hop on a plane. I don't really think about it, but it hasn't been around that long. When you really think about how far we've come with flying commercially as a form of transportation, even automobiles are relatively new. It's a little over 100 years old, but it's like how quickly the technology advances without it doesn't seem to be any effort, really. And we know why. We know that they're really ahead of the game, and they release it to us on like a drip release. But it's still kind of surprising when you think about how long these things have been around, and we sort of take it for granted. And then you look back and you're just like, wow, air travel's only been around for 50 years commercially. That's not a lot of time. And yet we don't really think about it. We just hop on a plane and take it for granted. So 717, hello. Good to see you. Watch The Gangster, The Cop, and the Devil for a good cop decode movie. Easy to follow who represents which god. Masks are being worn. Again, West Australia, no official info I'm aware of. Oh, you mean, okay, CV masks. That's interesting, yeah. Yeah, I don't pay attention to that sort of stuff, so I'm not in the loop as to if there's any notifications or anything going around or whatever, but The Gangster, The Cop, and the Devil. I have a hard time with foreign films. I will watch them occasionally, but I really need to be in the mood for subtitles. I lose patience. So I just don't like reading the movie. But anyhow, I'll give it a go. I'm always open to hearing new films because, I did hear about Don't Worry, Darling, but the controversy surrounding it kind of put me off, and I'm noticing that this is deliberate. I think they put this out there to deter people, but also, it's hype around the film, but it was such negative hype that it put me off, and I didn't really want to watch it. And then I think a couple people told me about it and said you should watch it. And then I watched the trailer and I was blown away. I was like, okay, I gotta watch this. And boy, am I glad I did. So yeah, like if there's a film or even just a clip or something that's worth watching, do let me know. Some of the films I really wanted to cover was like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars, and Titanic. I really want to look at those films because to me they're really obvious. And I also think because they're very popular, I think they'd be very interesting for people to see the hidden messages underneath. But I think those films would be really fun to do. Predestination is an interesting film. I've never heard of that. What is that about? Predestination sounds like I might have heard of it. Sounds like a bit of a thriller. Paul Zard, good to see you. Good to see you too. Glad you could make it. So, yeah, it kind of sounds familiar. But anyhow, I am behind. Well, not technically behind. I'm working on part 4 of Don't Worry, Darling, and it is very intense. This part has to do with the songs and the radio, the music that's in the film, and also Frank's speeches. And it's very fascinating what's revealed in the lyrics of the songs and everything. So I'm working on that now, and these are really intense videos. They take a lot out of me. But it also gives me a lot. There's a lot in it. Every time I make a video about it, I get so much information from it. And I just find it endlessly fascinating how deep you can go into this movie. And I think Under the Silver Lake, you can go really deep in that too. Back to the Future, not as deep, but it's pretty deep for the nature of that film. But this film has layers upon layers upon layers. It is so fascinating. And some of the insights that you are bringing and leaving in the comments are really interesting and fascinating too. So that's helping me to see things from a different angle and different perspective and draw attention to things that I wouldn't naturally or necessarily put focus on, because I can't obviously put focus on everything because there's just so much. So it's nice to see others pick certain things and tell me what their perspective is and what they got out of it. So it's really cool. Is there something that you've watched that is really, really obvious that you think is fun to, like, that you've been able to decode pretty easily? I mean, you said Cloud Atlas and Predestination. Also a question, like, did you see this? Like, when did you start to see the hidden messages of the truth beyond just like obvious things of, there's certain obvious truths that are put into film, like, oh, they're telling us the truth about flat Earth, or they're telling us the truth about CV, or like the sort of more conspiracy level truths. I'm talking about, when did you start to see the truth of Kundalini messaging in these films? And how easy is it for you to now see it? Anybody? Nobody? Okay. Okay. Well, is there something you particularly want to discuss? Because that's why I'm here. So I don't necessarily come with anything prepared to talk about. It's I mean, I can talk about some random stuff if you like. Revolver European cut movies about ego, the different aspects, characters in your head, brain. Revolver European. Oh, European cut. Revolver. I'm pretty sure I've heard of that. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's cool. Different aspects and characters in your brain. Excellent. Honestly, not until I watched your Decoding a Free Guy, perhaps little bits and pieces before that, but I was still pretty sleepy. Yeah, cool. Good to know. Thanks for this live beat, Nick. Welcome. Good to see you. We're just talking about when you were able to see the hidden messages of the Kundalini of Christ consciousness awakening in movies. Do you think we are near the end of the game? Yes, I do, Jack Marley. I do, absolutely. I think we're near the beginning and the end. It's the same. I see it as going backwards and forwards at the same time, which is odd. Like, it's like the end is the beginning and the beginning is the end. So it's kind of like, okay, so when you know generally about law of assumption, some of you would know quite a bit about it. Law of assumption is that you live in the end. So you know how things are going to be, or you want to create something in your life. So you focus on how it's going to be when you get it, and you live as if you already have it. And so that's kind of what this entire universe is structured upon. The end was created in the beginning. And so everything naturally unfolds automatically towards that end. And so in creating the end, the beginning is created at the same time, and everything just fills in the middle. And so it's very, very weird when you look at things that way and you can see how things unfold that way. I find it kind of disturbing still to see things from the end and how it goes backwards and forwards because of it. So it's like if I handed you a record or a CD or a DVD, it's in its completion, and you can't write a story until you know where it's going to go. You have to know the end before you start writing. Otherwise, you just meander all over the place. So I find that absolutely fascinating. There's so many people who are still programmed though, Beatnik. Yeah. And I need to be reminded of this on a regular basis because most of the time I live in this little bubble of talking to you guys because I don't need or desire to interact too much with people who can't see. I find it draining and exhausting. And so I've kind of got a huge distance between my bubble and their bubble. But I do watch an occasional, YouTuber who's in the bubble of the old world and they have no clue of what's in my bubble. And so it kind of grounds me and reminds me of, well, where I used to be, but where other people are and how they perceive the world, which I need because I need to be able to reach those people, not necessarily the ones in that extreme polarity, but to be able to talk to people who don't see in a way that they understand, so that if they come across my channel somehow, I don't know how, but if they happen to, there's a possibility that they could get something out of it and maybe come back later when they're more receptive to it. But I tend to forget that there are a lot of people who don't see anything. However, because we are all connected, I think there's a lot more people who are waking up to the greater truths, and like Kundalini awakening and everything. There's a lot more people who are waking up to that, and there's a lot more people waking up to the conspiracy level truth. So there's hope. I'm noticing the shift. Whereas before, I'd say around 2020, 2021, there was a lot in the conspiracy section. And now some of those people are graduating out of it, which is wonderful to see. So yeah, I think there's kind of a tipping point. Once I'm theorizing at this point, but I think there's a tipping point where a certain number of people obtain a certain knowledge, and then that spreads to everybody else because we're all connected. So this is also shown in Don't Worry, Darling. So that is a distinct possibility. Now, one of the questions that I'd like to ask you is, okay, what do you think of NPCs? Do you think NPCs will flip? If everybody is awake except NPCs, do you think the NPCs will flip and take on the position of everybody else? Or do you think that they'll stay where they are and just disappear? Or does it even matter? Because it's kind of the same thing. What do you think? Perth Gold Mint had a problem with China gold exports, purity problem, metaphor for being pure, sure before you go right east. Oh, interesting. Okay. Purity problem. Yeah, that's really interesting how, even in those sorts of subjects and those sorts of news topics, the truth is hidden in there too. Beatnik, I'm a comedian and this has been the most difficult part for me. What's the most difficult part for you? The fact that other people are still programmed? Could you elaborate, Beatnik? Glenn Bordeaux, I've got 3 adult children in the mainstream tunnel who keep me consistently dumbfounded. Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that they're still there. But yeah, my sister is well on that side. She is totally oblivious. She's in that bubble, and I don't even bother trying anymore. I don't bother trying to tell her anything. It's not painful for me anymore. I've accepted it, and it used to be painful. Around 2020, it was painful. But I think at that stage, I was still in the camp of, I can wake these people up. And now I don't even bother. It's more of, if you're interested, I'll tell you. If you're not, I won't bother. Beatnik, oh my God, I think they will stay and carry out their programmed role. That's a good assessment. It's accurate. Beatnik. Jack Collins, hello, welcome. Good to see you. Beatnik, people don't get my jokes until I'm on the second or third one. So when you say you're a comedian, are you stand-up comedian? That's hard. I used to do improv, and I tried stand-up comedy once. It was hard, and it was more the environment, which is really tough. If the crowd decides they don't like you, it's hard to get out of that assessment. So yeah, I found it kind of stressful environment, and I wanted to try it. It was something on my list of things to try to get out of my comfort zone. And I'm glad I tried it. I wouldn't want to do it again. But if you're a stand-up comedian, I mean, all the power to you. That's tough. I know quite a few people who were doing stand-up comedy as well, and there's one girl, she was touring kind of with a couple of friends of hers from, I guess they were from improv, and then they moved into stand-up, and so they toured around a little bit, and she had a good time. She had fun. Oh, that reminds me, Adam, hello. Would somebody please help me out? Is there anybody in the chat who's willing to take note of subject changes and the timestamps for me? Because I'm so focused on reading your comments and replying that I forget to do this, and it would save me a lot of time and hassle. Adam has agreed kindly to take care of when he's able to, but he's only here for within like the first beyond the first hour or hour and a half. So if somebody's willing to tag team with him and help him out, I'd really appreciate it. Just take note of subject changes and the timestamps and drop it in the comments or something. I would really appreciate it. Anybody willing to help out with that, please let me know. Where am I? I've heard many people say they've disappeared. That's why there's a labor shortage and not many people when they go out, but I'm surrounded by NPCs. Rainbow Warrior, good to see you. I wonder, the labor shortage thing is very strange. And I agree with you, I'm surrounded by NPCs for sure. But the labor shortage thing is very strange. It's almost like a lot of people did disappear. It's possible. But I don't know. It seems like nobody's even explaining it. They're kind of attributing it to people being lazy and not wanting to go back to work, but people need to work. So I don't know. It can't all be a bunch of people who are opposed to the mandates and can't go back to work like me. Like my job that I had before COVID, they still require you to be jabbed, and they still require all these other mandates and restrictions. I can't even believe it. So I can't go back. Like it's insane. And this is what almost 3.5 years later. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I don't know. They're not even explaining why there's a labor shortage. They're not explaining why, where all these people went. Normies aren't flipping, says me. Okay, so we have two people who are in the camp of the normies and the NPCs are not flipping. So, Beatnik, yes. Dolores Cannon introduced me to NPCs. I did notice that she talks about them. I'm not really overly familiar with Dolores Cannon, although I know who she is and I know vaguely what she's about. I'm sure she has some valuable information mixed in with a bunch of other stuff that's not so valuable. I encourage everyone to do stand up. Yeah, it's definitely something to get you out of your comfort zone. It's not easy though. It's really difficult. I think we all change at different levels. Change? What do you mean by that, Jack? Change at different levels. 717, maybe NPCs give balance. We all go through to speak, so to speak, together though. We all go through, so they played their part so others could awaken. Just a theory, like beehive, different jobs for different bees. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah, they're here to do a job. So, I mean, part of their job is to maintain the illusion of this reality of, there's other people here and they're here to interact with us and play their part in helping you awaken and helping you grow and see things about yourself. And then they're they're not designed to wake up. So, I mean, they could flip if they're just it. The reason I say that they could flip is because if they're connected to the system overall and the system flips, then they would flip with it. But if it's a situation of, well, like in Don't Worry, Darling, she wakes up and there was a flip that happens, but she gets out, does the simulation exist anymore? So I suspect that once we are out, this place doesn't exist anymore, doesn't need to exist anymore. Or maybe the point is that it exists, but we're not in it anymore. That's possible too. Adam, I'm recruiting for a good performing job for good money and struggling to find people who want to commit. Really? Huh. Well, I'm not going to move to England again. So I don't know why. Why is it? What are you finding any more information as to why they're not wanting to commit? All good, beatnik. Yes, Jack. Yes, the system will flip and everyone will change. I think that would make sense. So, yeah, Adam's in England. Just excuses. I don't know. Okay. So people just don't. Do they not want to commit to the job itself? Why would they even apply? Or do they not want to commit to what the job entails or the hours? Or that's really interesting. So I guess a lot of times, I think the shift that 2020 did to us forced everyone to be at home and to take stock of their life and realize that they can do something other than what they were doing before in a lot of ways. So maybe a lot of people decided that they were just done with certain things in their life, and so they want more balance, or they don't want to work full time or at particular jobs that they were doing. Interesting. It's hard to know, I guess. Nobody seems to be doing any surveys or studies. No, not that I'm paying attention. So maybe they are and I'm not noticing. They express interest and come back with an array of reasons one preferred to stay at Starbucks. Well, from what I hear, Starbucks has decent pay with decent bonuses and such. So that's interesting. Huh. This is very interesting. Beatnik, I'm seeing many single household income earners in my field. My coworkers' husbands are opting to be house dads. Oh, that's interesting. So this touches on a subject that I have been recently discussing with a friend of mine and been seeing in a lot of reality shows. Like, my little mind candy is certain reality shows, reality dating shows in particular. Specifically Love is Blind. I like to watch that show. Anyway, what I have noticed with those shows is a role reversal, a flipping of the men are taking on characteristics of more feminine characteristics, more of the role of a woman in their relationship. And we're talking about the relationship dynamic of traditional, I guess, gender roles, sex roles. Let's say, for example, traditionally we would think that the man is supposed to chase and the woman is supposed to attract, right? Now you've got a couple where the woman is the chaser and she's very dominant in the relationship and she carries the bulk of the relationship, and the man is more passive and following, and this is more feminine energy and the woman has more masculine energy, because feminine energy is attracting or drawing in, and masculine is more aggressive or going out. It's starting to flip, which is really interesting. So yeah, I'm seeing that. And for you to say that husbands are now starting to want to stay home, that's a role flip. So, I mean, that's really interesting. Why would the man choose to stay home? Okay, let's take a quick survey of the men and the women in the chat. Are you experiencing in your own life any type of role reversal? Are you taking on more traits or habits or behaviors that are traditionally assigned to the other sex? Or are you also noticing this in your own life, like your partner or your children or the people around you? Are you noticing this more? I know my dad retired, and so he started to take care of the house a little bit more, because obviously, like, he's got to have stuff to do and there needs to be a bit more balanced. But my dad tends to do a little bit more than my mom. My mom kind of sits back and doesn't do very much, but she occasionally cleans the house. So it's not really the fair assessment because my dad's retired. So he would have to help around the house. But yeah, I don't know. Former friend of mine, her husband stayed home to look after the kids for a period of time. So that's my example. Me personally, I'm trying to tap more into the feminine side, where I've had to sort of balance both the masculine and feminine. And I know I was more oriented towards the masculine energy in me because of, being career oriented or being in certain jobs or industries. It is very male dominated, and so that drew that side of me out more. And now I'm reverting over to the feminine side of me and want that to be more dominant. So I've been consciously shifting to be more feminine and less, I guess, masculine, in the sense of like a career oriented. It was like, so not interested in that anymore. So that's really interesting. Okay, where am I? So anybody in the chat who lives in England who's interested in a seasonal gig, go see Adam. Lana, hello. Yes, remember to click like. That would be great. Show me that you like my channel. No worries. I love First Dates UK TV show. Yeah, I enjoy, what I really love about these shows though, especially Love is Blind, is a very good show for psychology. And that's really what I'm interested in, is human behavior, relationship dynamics, and psychology. And I like to see how people react to these shows and how they interpret the behavior, and how it's so fascinating how some people completely misconstrue this dynamic between two people. And I mean, I don't want to bore you by getting into the details, but there's been so many weird interactions between these couples that a lot of people have completely misconstrued. They tend, what I've noticed is they tend to side with somebody because they relate to them and they have issues themselves. And so instead of seeing the situation as it is, they see it through the lens of like all men are evil, therefore this person's evil because he's a man. And that doesn't even make sense, but that's how they see it. And so their trauma is filtering things inaccurately. So, and same goes for men. Men see the same thing. Like if they've been traumatized, they'll get triggered and see things through that lens and say, well, all women are evil, so therefore all I see is the evil coming from these women. And so it's really fascinating to me to see this. The other reason I'm watching it is because these things are so popular. There's got to be something going on. And I like it. I enjoy watching it. Rainbow Warrior, another reason I'm single. What was the reason? Where are we? Sorry, Rainbow Warrior. I don't know what you're referring to, why you're single. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. A lot of this stuff too. Okay, here's what I'm noticing with the reality TV, and I don't want to harp on it too much, but it is fascinating. I'm noticing there's a huge emphasis on narcissism in these reality shows. And I talked about narcissism on my channel, which is hugely important because we live in the ego mind and the narcissistic mind. And so that's falling apart. And that's why there's a light being shed on the narcissistic mind. So the narcissistic mind isn't just exclusively for people who suffer from narcissistic personality disorder. We all have narcissistic traits. And so what this is doing is causing us to reflect on our own behavior and see those behaviors, the narcissistic behaviors, and shed a light on them so that they go away, so you don't do them anymore, because we can't carry that into the new world because we need a new mind. And that stuff is not going to carry over. So the further in the narcissistic mind that you are, if you are suffering from narcissistic personality disorder, from what I understand, you can't get out of it because your narcissism won't let you. So if you are able to change your behavior and recognize your behavior and do better, you're not suffering from NPD. So the changes. So anyway, these relationships and the dynamic that's being portrayed on these shows is really emphasizing the narcissistic dynamic, and it's showing back to us negative behaviors and saying this is not acceptable, which it kind of would have been helpful, a long time ago. And there's a lot of therapists out there discussing this behavior, a lot of psychologists, therapists, what is it called? Body language experts who are analyzing these interactions and providing some really helpful insight into understanding what people are really saying, or what they really mean, or what their mental perceptions are, which is incredibly helpful when you're dealing with people, not just in love relationships, but any kind of relationship. And to be able to navigate your way around them, or first also temper them within yourself, but also navigate your way around them, or how to better communicate so that you don't upset somebody, or that you can look after their feelings, or you can, say things in a little kinder way and be more aware of how you communicate with people. It's incredibly helpful. Anyhow, I think that that's really hugely important to what's happening right now. The show Beef shows this really well. I've never heard of Beef. It must be British. They want me to do all the work while they watch porn and OnlyFans all day. Oh dear. Wilfie, hi, good to see you. You love my mom. I love my mom too. Beatnik, yes, I'm gay and I've refused to date these masculine, feminine women. Hard pass. Masculine, feminine women. Well, everybody has masculine and feminine within them, and depending on the situation, it can draw out your masculine qualities or your feminine qualities. And a lot of times women have had to cope by compensating to bring out their masculine side. And sometimes you'll see that in abusive households, or unfortunately, you see that a lot with women being very dominant and masculine over their husbands who are very feminine and passive, which is not a healthy dynamic. Most of the time I see that kind of dynamic, they usually get divorced. So yeah, and especially in corporate world, it's very male dominated. And so women who are trying to succeed in corporate world, their masculine side comes out because it's male dominated. It's not just male dominated in the sense that it's dominated by men. It's male dominated and it's a masculine trait. It's a masculine environment. Corporate is masculine minded. So that's why I can't tolerate it anymore. I can't stand it. So it's it turns you into something that you don't want to become. And even with men, and it's also very narcissistic minded. That corporate lifestyle and the corporate world is very narcissistic minded. And that's the masculine side. Not to say something negative about men. It's not. It's the masculine side. It's very left brain. And then you want to balance things out. You want to have, some of the feminine, some of the sensitivity, some of the emotion, some of the, the empathy, and balance that out and bring that together. So that's what I mean by that. I don't want anyone to misunderstand what I'm saying. Valentina, good to see you. I was just living that I was the breadwinner of the relationship. Okay, interesting. Yeah. I mean, some people like that dynamic, and some people don't. Some people, it could cause stress in the relationship, but for both people, it could cause stress to the woman to be the breadwinner. It could cause stress for the man to be not the breadwinner. It depends. It depends on how you manage it. Mary Cronin, I try to point out to my partner that part of the divine masculine is to make the woman feel supported and secure. Yeah. I mean, it's both. It goes both ways. The woman needs to make the man feel supported and secure as well. So, but it's in different. Is it in different ways? I think you're supposed to complement each other. So, there was a nice dynamic on Love is Blind where the woman, she was having some stress because of the wedding and everything that was going on. And so she was upset, and all she wanted was to be heard. And her partner just listened and gave her a shoulder to cry on, literally. And then he took her out to make her feel better and did something nice for her. And really helped her relieve her stress. So he was able to provide her what she needed with the support emotionally just by listening, not trying to fix it, not trying to solve it. But then he was able to also use the solving part, because men like to fix things. It's, you're presenting me with a problem. I just want to fix it. I want to make it better. How can I make it better? And so the man was able to provide her with that by taking her out to make her feel better. He didn't try to fix her problem. He didn't try to say, okay, well, what's the problem? How can I fix it? How do I make it better? He's just, how do I make you feel better? And then the problem got solved. So that was really interesting too. So, where am I? Prison riot outbreak here again, metaphor as always. Interesting numerology involved. AC/DC song Jailbreak springs to mind. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I am more of the homemaker in my relationship with my girl. She continues to see Zoom clients several a week. I only have 3 massage clients at the moment. Glenn, how do you feel about that? The 2 people who were mentioning about being, okay, so Valentina is the breadwinner, and Glenn was saying that his girlfriend is, or I guess girlfriend is you're more of the homemaker. So how do you feel about that? It is a bit of a role reversal from like traditional roles. So I want to know, how do you feel about it? It sounds as if you're okay with it, but I don't want to assume anything. I feel forced to be the masculine and feminine, but it's not natural for me. I enjoy being the feminine. I agree with you, Rainbow Warrior. I feel the same way. I don't like having to do both. I had to carry both sides, and it doesn't really leave room for the man. I am used to doing everything myself. I am used to it's good in some ways and it's not in others. And I'm learning to allow people to do more and do things for me, but I am not good at asking, and I'm not good at even thinking about asking. When I was 17, I decided I wanted to go see a movie, but I didn't have anyone to go see it with, because my friend was out on a date with her boyfriend or whatever. And so I didn't even think about asking somebody. I just went. And it was the first time I did something like that by myself. And it was on a Friday night. So all my schoolmates were out on date night, and I went on a Friday night to the movies by myself. It was nerve-wracking, but I'm really glad that I did it, because it took courage to do that. And I went by myself. I did something that I wanted to do, and I wasn't going to wait around for somebody else to allow me to do that. And I kind of ended up doing that a lot in my life. I would ask friends, hey, do you want to go on vacation with me? And they would hum and haw and say, well, I got to see, and I got to check my schedule. And they wouldn't get back to me. And I would say, okay, listen, you haven't gotten back to me. I'm going to go. And I would go by myself, because I wasn't going to stick around, and I wasn't going to hinge my activities on somebody else, and they're humming and hawing and not getting back to me and not being able to get their stuff in order. So I kind of got to the point where it's just like, I don't even ask anymore. If I want to go on vacation, I just go. So yeah, it's a little bit, it doesn't really even occur to me. It's not that bad. Like, it's fine. But sometimes I'm on vacation, and then, yeah, sometimes I think it would be nice to have someone to share it with, but I just go. I was never going to let companionship stand in my way of doing something. Anyhow, but yeah, I don't like having to do that. I really don't. Gia, my wife is 16 years older. I'm 50. She's 66. She's very feminine, and for me, the perfect woman. Oh, that's so sweet. Sex has become less, but I'm happy with her. We share a lot of spiritual, political ideas, nature. Oh, that's lovely. I like hearing that. That's really nice. I wish I could just be an undercover gay housewife from the 60s. Tell my husband I can't make love because past trauma and just hang out with Betty and Thelma all day while he works. Oh, goodness. Mary, I'm the breadwinner and it makes me more aggressive. Resentment comes up. That's interesting. Thank you for being honest. Like, I'd like to know. I want to know. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't want to assume. Valentina, I felt terrible. Too much stress and anxiety. One of the main reasons this relationship ended. I like a masculine man, and I never intended to end up in a situation like that. Thank you, Valentina. Thank you for your honesty. Really, that's really unfortunate. It's really sad, but that you can notice that, and that's why. That's important. Glenn, role reversal. Yes, I feel I'm in a bit of a holding pattern at the moment, and I sense there's a very large change of scene in the future. Not sure what though. Well, that's good. Ahmed Yusul, I hope I pronounced that right. Hello from Algeria. Wonderful. I discovered you with the movie Under the Silver Lake. Welcome. I don't think I've ever had someone from Algeria, so this is new. This is wonderful. I love hearing where everybody's from. I have obviously a lot of English-speaking people from. The majority of people watch my channel are American, and then I think England, and then Australia and Canada. Obviously, like the English-speaking countries are pretty dominant, but I've noticed quite a few from Germany, Netherlands. I think, yeah, somebody from Finland, Algeria. That's new. So I think a couple from Africa, South Africa. I was talking to someone from South Africa for a while. So yeah, it's really nice to see where everybody's from, and France, I think, was another country. What was another one? Yeah, so some Europe, and not a lot from the East, which is interesting. Valentina, I also noticed he became resentful too, so it didn't work. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Still maintaining my masculinity, however, our properties and mutual endeavors are demanding enough. Yeah, hypergamy is real, it's genetic, and rarely can be overcome. I don't know what that is. What is hypergamy? Am I pronouncing it right? She is from Germany. Excellent. So, yeah, what's hypergamy? Yeah, it's really unfortunate, like the whole role reversal thing. It can really do a number on your confidence. And I think it has a lot to do with how we identify ourselves. Like, how do we see ourselves, not just personally, but in society as well? But there's also a lot of biological things that, like, biologically being able to address the needs within us as a man or a woman, those are inherent, that are not put on by society. So there's a lot of, I think that's why when the balance is upset and you're not able to address those needs, that's when things get out of whack. Like we were saying, like if I'm being more masculine and I'm not able to address the more feminine side, I'm out of whack, and it's not healthy. It's taking something away from me to have to be that way. And I also noticed that because if I was in a certain situation, like work-wise or whatever, and I was attracting a man in that situation, they would be attracted to the masculine side that I was exuding, because I would have to be more forceful or aggressive or assertive, or I would have to be more straightforward or that sort of thing. And then when they date me, they find the feminine side, because now I have the man, I don't need to be like that. And so then they would find the feminine side and they'd be like, hang on a second. It was like, okay, but I was in a work environment, which is a different situation. So now you have the opportunity to see the softer side, and it does exist. It's not like I was hiding it from you. It was there. It was just not as visible because the masculine side was more dominant. So it's it's tricky. You have to, I just don't think that, I think that the way society is structured, and I mean, I don't have to tell you this, it's forcing us to be out of balance of what's natural to us. And one could argue what's natural. And I guess, in some ways it's biological, and in other ways it's more psychological and individual. So some people maybe it's like you can be a man and be more effeminate and yet still have masculine needs that need to be fulfilled. So you can also have, if you're more effeminate, just what does that even mean? You're more sensitive, you're more emotional, or you're more nurturing or receiving than aggressive. But yeah, it's a very, I don't want to get too deep in this because I feel like I'm treading on dangerous territory here with the current situation on this topic. But I do not mean to offend anybody. I just want to, I think it's important to talk about that in an honest way. Hypergamy is a term used in social science for the act or practice of a person marrying a spouse of higher caste or social status. Oh, okay. Yeah. That happens a lot. Women can't go back financially. Men can't go back sexually in terms of previous partners. Oh, that's interesting. It's it's a general premise, but it's almost always true. That's really interesting. Buffering too much. We'll check out tomorrow, which is today. Thanks. British royalties playing out. Upper Lower Egypt breakup. Maybe new mid crown will be minted. That makes sense. Well, thanks for coming. Sorry it's buffering. Is anybody else having buffering problems? Women are precious without doing anything. Men have to perform. Of course, there are nuances on every individual level. Thanks for letting me know there's no buffering. Okay. Hello. So when you say women are precious without doing anything and men have to perform, is that a socially accepted concept, or is that something that is just a statement of fact? Okay, cool. Nobody else is having a buffering problem. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. So I heard this is one reason why more people are single. With more women in higher paid careers, there are fewer men above them financially to choose from. That's possible too. Here's another issue. Okay, get into some stereotypes here, so please don't be offended or triggered. I know who I'm talking to, but anybody who happens to watch this who's outside of my regular audience, please don't take this offensively. I don't mean it offensively, and I'm kind of disappointed that I have to even say this, but anyway, I want to touch on this topic here because the way society is that if you look back, typically speaking, I don't know how many of you have actually seen Lord Oseron's video on trying to solve the male-female marriage dynamic. It's quite interesting. But traditionally, in the past, women didn't work. And older men married younger women. And his solution had to do with, mostly to do with sex, and I'm not going to get too into it, but older men are financially better off. They're more stable. They've had more life experience, and they can take care of a younger woman. A younger woman doesn't have as much life experience. She doesn't need to work because she's coming straight from the parental home, going straight into marriage. And so she's taken care of, she's safe and protected. And then later on in life, according to Lord Oseron's suggestion, the woman could go and have more life experience after she's had children. So that's kind of the traditionally accepted model in the past. The way things are today, with women working, being more independent, women having more sexual experience and being more expressive, a little bit more on the masculine side, doing things themselves, taking on more masculine role, it kind of pushes out the need for a man in her life in a lot of ways, because she can do all of the things that typically a man would do. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. There's still room for a man in her life. And I do suspect it's possible that men feel that there's not as much room for them, and men need to feel needed. They need to feel useful. This is sort of the masculine trait, where they need to feel useful and needed. And if they don't, they feel slightly emasculated, or they don't know where their place is. So the dynamic with a situation where a woman has a lot of life experience, she's traveled a lot, she's had many careers, she's had many boyfriends, many relationships, she has a lot of wisdom and life experience. It is harder for a woman to find someone who is higher than that, has more life experience, has something to teach her, is able to look after her, that she feels is able to take care of her. Because when you have all of that life experience, you need somebody who has more. And so it does become out of balance. It does become difficult to find somebody who you feel can provide that, because and on the other side too, and sorry, I'm talking mostly from this perspective because I'm a woman, but anyway, I'll flip it in a minute. And then the man will also feel a little frustrated, because if he doesn't have that life experience and she does, say she's CEO of a company, she's a world traveler, she's written a couple of books, like whatever the life experience she has, and this guy he may be a wonderful man, he may have a lot of wonderful qualities and strong values, but let's say he's been married before, but he only dated one person, he hasn't had a lot of life experience, never traveled, is lower on the corporate ladder. All of those factors come into play, and that dynamic is going to be off. And so even if you look at it from the male perspective, if, this is going to create a bit of a competition in the sense where, what do I have to offer? You have everything. You have a house, you have a car, you have a career, you earn more than I do. What do I have to bring? And obviously, if you're looking at it from that perspective, it's kind of looking at it from a very limited perspective, because obviously you're bringing you and your experience and who you are as a person. And a lot of women in that camp might feel that they have they will see a man who they are as a quality person, rather than the job they have, rather than the things they own. And yet, no matter how accepting they are, the man may still feel less than because of the fact that she has all this stuff, and he just doesn't feel like he measures up on the material side. So it creates an imbalance, and it does make it harder. It really does. And there's still a social stigma around a woman who has more life experience in love relationships. And there's also, and it's not that common. I mean, but it still exists, perhaps more in this sort of a little bit more on the incel side, I would say. There's a lot more open-mindedness around that, and more acceptance around that on the whole. Anyhow, this is my observation. If you disagree with me and you've had different experiences, I would love to hear it. Where am I here? I'll take a woman making more than me. I just don't want another mother. That's a problem too. Yeah. Ray, love, this is a beautiful conversation. Thank you. Oh, good. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying your comments. In my experience, the men take advantage of vulnerabilities of a woman, especially if the man makes all the money. Things can get abusive. That's why a lot of women are changing, maybe. Yeah, that's really unfortunate. Like you can get into a situation where a woman becomes vulnerable if she doesn't have her own income and her own career and can't take care of herself, because then you become wholly dependent on the man. And it can go the other way too. A man can end up being wholly dependent on the woman, and they can hold it over you. I mean, especially if you're in an abusive relationship, or you're in a relationship with a narcissist, which is the same thing. But if you're in that situation and they can use that as a power play and hold it over you and say, I own you type of thing, which is really dangerous. And a lot of people will stay in relationships because of the financial situation, because they feel like, I have nowhere to go. I don't have any money. I don't earn anything. I can't even rent a place because I don't have an income. So for them, they feel stuck. And that's a really bad place to be. It's not about experience. It is because such women are not respecting men who have less experience. If a woman has less experience, it's okay for a man. I think it can be like that for sure, but I do think that a lot of times women are accepting and the man isn't accepting. So it can go both ways. Absolutely. A woman who earns more after the relationship started mostly leave the relationship. Really? Men don't do that. Well, that's interesting. That could be anecdotal. That could be from your personal experience. Like, I don't know what the statistics are, but from what I have seen, and this is totally anecdotal on my side, I've seen a few women earn more than their partner, their husband, and they didn't leave. I did notice though that the dynamic was a bit weird, but they didn't leave. But I don't know the inner workings of their relationship, whether it's healthy or not. But that's really interesting that is your experience, or that's what you've seen. Rainbow Warrior. Where are we? In my experience, the men take advantage of. Oh, we already read that. Rainbow Warrior. There we are. It does throw off the dynamic and can be emasculating, but men I've met don't want to work. They don't want to take care of the kids, and they don't want to do anything but boss me around. Well, that doesn't sound very good. Yeah, that's not good. I mean, there's certainly men like that. There's women like that too. That's not even a gender thing, a sex thing. Independent woman uses kind of words to defend the loss of femininity. That does happen. It does, for sure. Beatnik, thanks for the convo. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I agree with that. My ex-husband did that, tried to control me with money. Yeah, sorry to hear that, Wolfie. It definitely happens, because when somebody does that, it is because that's all they have as a power play. They're clinging to something that gives them leverage, and that's their go-to. They can't think of any other reason why you should stay with them. Ugh. I mean, we all have painful moments, and we all have times where we say things that are hurtful, and there are better ways to say it, but in the moment you can't think of one. So if you get into a situation where you're feeling that you're about to lose somebody, and you're trying to hold on to them, the go-to for a lot of people is to throw at them, well, you're going to lose out on this, you're going to lose out on that, as opposed to, okay, I feel that I'm going to lose my partner here. How can I win them back? And put out more love, and put out more positive, loving energy, and things that will attract them back to you, as opposed to, well, you're going to lose this, you're going to lose this, you're not going to be able to cope without me, which is fearful and hurtful, and isn't going to attract anybody. So, that sort of approach is really detrimental and controlling. And a lot of times people don't even know any better. They don't know, like, they probably got it from their parents, and their parents did it. I don't know. It can be really detrimental. So I'm sorry that happened. That's awful. I'm not a man hater. I know there are good ones out there. I've just had a lot of bad experiences. Well, I'm glad to hear you're not a man hater. Yeah, it is tough when you have bad experiences, and there's definitely great men out there, and there's great women out there too, but there's also a lot of not so great ones. And the only thing you can do is look at yourself and try to figure out how to attract the good ones. So yeah, we all have we all have those sorts of issues to heal and face. Where am I? Rainbow Warrior. I know they say it's a reflection on me to attract narcissistic types, but there are the types that show up in my life for whatever reason. Well, if you don't mind me saying, I've attracted some narcissistic types, and both men and women. And here's what I've learned, because the overall advice I think that is given for people who attract narcissists is to create boundaries, which is true, but what I find is narcissists don't give a shit about boundaries. Use the boundary setting as a tool to detect the narcissist and then cut them out when you find them. So, for example, figure out what it is you want. Don't focus excessively on what they want and what they're doing, because narcissists are masters of, hey, look at me, pay attention to me, I'll keep you busy with my drama and my issues and my mind games, and you won't even have time to think about what you want, which is what they want you to do. And so you want to figure out what you want. And when you figure out what you want and determine, not just like in the type of man or woman you want, but also the type of relationship you want, what type of lifestyle you want. And then hopefully you attract that, because you would have to believe you can have it and line up with it. It's the law of attraction, law of assumption. But then when you attract somebody into your life, make sure they fit what you want. And a narcissist is going to try to mirror you, right? So they're hard to detect because they'll appear to be everything that you want. So to test whether they're a narcissist or not, if they cross over something that you don't want them to do, they make you do something you don't really want to do, say no. And set a boundary. And if they try to convince you to do it, or they try to convince you to change your mind on something that is a real sticking point for you, and they try to belittle you, they try to steamroll you, they totally discard that boundary, then you know they're a narcissist. And it's got to be something that's really important to you. It can't just be something that's trivial, because then if it's trivial, you'll go back and forth, wondering if it really was it, if they really were a narcissist, or if it was just, well, it really wasn't all that important to me. Maybe I'm making a bigger deal out of it than it really was. And you'll start questioning yourself and start doubting yourself. It has to be a real sticking point for you. Say, for example, so one time I will not, on any circumstances, I will not ride a motorcycle. And I told this to this guy that I was talking to about going on a date. And I said, I will not get on a motorcycle. And he rides a motorcycle. And he tried to convince me to get on a motorcycle. I said, I don't think you understand. I will never get on a motorcycle. Do not even ask me. And he kept trying. So I said, goodbye. I'm not talking to you anymore. So it's got to be something that's really important to you. And if they try and push you, you just don't talk to them anymore. And don't let them come back in your life under any circumstances. You have to get to the point where you will not accept these types of people in your life ever again. And a lot of times it's because we're too nice, we're too kind, we're too open, we're too willing to allow these types of people, because we feel that everybody deserves a chance, or we feel bad for, maybe they're vulnerable and they say, kind of talk about their sob stories, or they have a sob story that kind of hooks you in, and so you feel bad for them, or something that tugs on your empathy. And you got to get to the point where you put yourself first. What do you want? What do you want for yourself? What do you want in a man? What do you, or a woman? What do you want in a relationship? And what do you want in your lifestyle? And if he or she does not measure up, don't even entertain it. Don't even waver. Don't even look at it. Say no. And don't compromise. Compromise on the little things, the things that don't really matter to you. Don't compromise on the things that do matter to you. And then when somebody, what was I going to say? And you can let it go in kindness. And if somebody, here's what I was going to say. If somebody shows themselves to be a narcissist or have narcissistic tendencies that you're not willing to tolerate in the long run, do not excuse it. Do not say, maybe it's a one-off. Maybe he didn't mean it that way. Don't start making excuses for bad behavior, which is what we tend to do. We tend to give them the benefit of the doubt. So don't do that either. If they show themselves to be of a certain kind of person, or they show themselves to do certain things, cut it off right then and there, and do not go back on it, because that's when they get you. And so, yeah, you really have to be firm on what you are willing to tolerate and what you are not, and don't be so forgiving on those issues. And so if somebody tells you that they're a narcissist, or that they have those tendencies, and it's behavior you're not willing to tolerate, you can say, listen, I really like you, but I don't think we're a good match, or I don't think that this is something that's going to work out for me, but I wish you the best. I think it's best if we just part ways. And you don't need to be mean about it. You don't need to be defensive about it. You don't need to be harsh about it. Just let them go, and do not let them contact you again. Block them, block their phone number, block their email. It's you got to get to the point where it's like, okay, I don't hate this person. I don't have anything against this person. I don't want this person in my life, though, because I value my energy, I value my time, and I value what I have to offer. And I don't want to give that to you, because you don't deserve it from me. You deserve it, but you're not there yet. So, that person is just not going to take from me. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. This is just my personal experience, and from what I've learned about narcissism, and really understand the signs of narcissism. HG Tutor is a very good resource for that. He has a lot of really great information on narcissism and how to detect them. And, it's really awful. If it's somebody who's in your life already and you have an established relationship with them, you're going to want to be certain. But I'm talking about new people. When you're dating and it's new and you see a red flag right away, don't excuse it away. Just seriously, just do not tolerate it. Yeah, I think giving the benefit of the doubt is so tricky. Where am I here? There are a lot of men that have bad experiences with women too. We need an emancipation of the man. Man can lose more if the relationship doesn't function. I think it depends, obviously. If you're in a situation where the man is the breadwinner and he's put all his money and everything into it, yeah, a man can stand to lose a lot if it doesn't work out. This is the frustrating thing about marriage, is that it's not just a love thing. It's a money thing, a property thing. And you have to be, with marriage, you have to have your heart tied to your head, because if you marry just for love, you'll be you will lose your head. You will not be sensible in financial ways. Is why you hear about all these wealthy people marrying for love, naively being manipulated by a narcissist, and they take you for all you have. And that's because you weren't thinking with your head, you were thinking with your heart. And the opposite is true too, where you just get entangled in a marriage that's loveless because you look at it as a business proposition. So it's quite a serious commitment, and it's quite difficult to disentangle yourself from it. And a lot of times too, like one thing I find frustrating about Love is Blind is that they don't take marriage seriously. I mean, who gets married after 20 days? It's very rare that you get married after 20 days and it succeeds. But I'm not saying it doesn't happen in the real world, but to make a TV show where these people meet in compressed time situation and get married after 20 days is a little bit treats marriage really cavalierly. And I mean, what do you expect? All the reality shows treat marriage cavalierly. Finally home, Adam. I love a feminine woman, but they all seem to be attracted to those that they know will hurt them, usually based on looks, which show up as meatheads. Yeah, that's unfortunate too. I think obviously a lot of this stems back to how they were raised, but your parents can raise you a certain way, and then you get into a crowd of friends who influence you negatively, and you get influenced without your parents' knowledge. And so if your parents can be more involved when you were younger and help nurture you through your early relationships, I think you would be better off. And this is just a theory, but I think that you would be better off in the sense that you have someone to talk to about relationship problems. You have someone to talk to about how to treat your partner, how to treat a boy or a girl, and how to have a healthy relationship. You need someone to provide you with a healthy relationship model right from the get-go. And if you don't have that, you just fumble your way through, and you end up stumbling into all sorts of chaos, all sorts of mess, and everybody's got different ideas of how relationships should work. And I think the number one thing is having respect for someone else, having respect for them regardless of their past or their history or how they behave. If you have respect for somebody and you have respect for yourself, and that's taught to you by someone, then that is going to help create a foundation for you to be in a healthy relationship in the future. And that seems to have gone by the wayside years ago, if that ever even existed. I think for the most part, most people just got married because they had to. It was expected of them. So nobody really had any idea how to have healthy relationships. And if you did, it was probably because you were a therapist or something. So, and even therapy's only been around since the 50s. So it's no wonder we're all messed up, And there's this culture around dating apps and online dating and Instagram and social media, and it's all very physically focused. And if a woman doesn't, or a man too, goes both ways, but if the person doesn't match up to the physical ideal, there's over focus on that and not enough focus on the quality of person, their values, what kind of relationship they're going to create with you. And hookup culture is really detrimental. When I know years ago, I think it was just out of college or something, I started hearing about rainbow parties. I was appalled. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I mean, we had bush parties and stuff when I was in high school, but we never had anything like rainbow parties. And I'm not going to explain what that is, but if you know what that is, yeah, you'd be appalled too. But or like lipstick parties, lipstick, whatever. Anyway, you get the idea. Maybe. Oh boy. If you create your reality, don't you create them? To an extent, they're a reflection of either an aspect of you or a disowned aspect of you, or they're a reflection of what you need in order to get you to what you really want. So let's say if you really want, just for argument's sake, for the conversation, let's say you want the fairy tale wedding and you want a fairy tale romance, but you are somebody who is, kind of used to abusive relationships, or you're in a bad situation and you have a disjointed view of relationships. You could attract somebody who is the complete opposite of a fairy tale relationship to show you that this is not what you want, to bring out the side of you that needs to be healed in order to prepare you for the fairy tale relationship, because you have a lesson to learn in order to get what you really want. That happens too. So you have to figure out, okay, well, what is it that I want? And if you're not lined up with it, if you don't believe that you can have it, you're going to have a bumpy ride to getting it. So yes, that's true. But not everybody is aware of what's inside and why that's being created outside. So yeah, you have to be aware of it. And that's what it's doing, is it's making you aware of it. Adam, I'm trying to not let it become a manifestation though, but I often feel lost by the wayside. Women often don't express interest and it's up to men to chase, but I'm not really about that. I want mutual interest. You can have mutual interest. I think not to get, I hope you don't mind. Because you stated this, I'm going to get into it. But I'm sensing a bit of a conflict with what you want and what you believe. So you're saying that you you feel lost by the wayside and you want mutual interest, but the conflict is you believe that men have to chase and you don't want to chase. So that's conflicting. If you clear that up and you believe that you can have a situation where a woman comes into your life and it expresses mutual interest, then you will clear that conflict up and you will attract somebody who brings in mutual interest. And it doesn't mean chasing a woman doesn't mean you have to like run after her or anything. Chasing a woman can just mean you express interest first. You understand, you can feel her interest, you can sense her interest, but you're the one who has to go out on a limb and say something first. You're the one who has to say, would you like to go out with me? Or I really like you. I think I would like to go out on a date with you. Try not to overcomplicate it. We all overcomplicate it. I know I overcomplicate it. And I've always been shy about saying something. And I think a lot of women are shy about saying something. Some are not. But I find in my personal experience, and maybe you have different experience, which I would love to hear, is that if you are, if a woman comes on too strong, a man is put off. And they see the woman as a different kind of woman, which is not always the case. So a woman might just feel that, well, if I don't say something, he's not going to. So it puts her in the position of having to say something first, which sets off the balance. So if a man just senses that she's interested, and then he says something first, that's all it takes is for him to chase her. It's not anything more than that. And it doesn't have to be a big production or show or anything. So anyway, I hope you don't mind me saying, I hope that's helpful. Maybe other people have some suggestions or advice. Chia, he loses his children. Mostly he has to leave the apartment. He has to pay more because he's earned more because of the hypergamy. Yeah, like that's also issue. And I think it depends too on the nature of the relationship in the end. If you can split amicably and sort out a shared custody situation. But yeah, it is awful. The way families are torn apart in divorce, it is awful and painful. And I don't think a lot of people in society consider how hard it is to take the children away from the father, how hard it is on the father as well as the kids. But because for the most part, children are given to the mother unless there's some extenuating circumstances. And it has to be very hard and very painful for the father. Father's role in a family and a father's role in bringing up children is very important. It's important to have that role model, but also that masculine balance. And again, you get into a situation where the mother, if she's rearing the children and has sole custody, she ends up having to play both roles. And then when the children go and visit the father has to deal with the way the mother is raising the children, and it becomes very disjointed because he doesn't have a clue how she's raising them. So how he contends with the, well, mom lets us do this. He said, well, this is my house and this is how we do things here. And it creates conflicting rules and conflicting dynamic, which is again also tough on the father and tough on the children. So ideally you'd be able to split amicably and have open conversation between the two so that you can continue to raise them with similar ideals and values and rules so that it's not overly hard on everybody. But most of the time it's not like that. So where I read that already. Rainbow Warrior, need to have a good balance on the man and woman side so they can be fair to each other. Absolutely. Wolfie, you can't reason with unreasonable people. You have to walk away from the situation for your own sanity. For sure. Yeah. I've been burned because I'm too nice, Valentina. Yeah, being too nice is, I find it so tragic that being a kind and nice person, and also if you're someone who accepts people unconditionally or unconditional love, it can be detrimental. I find it horrible and heartbreaking that that's what it's like here. And honestly, the energy where you protect yourself first and you can give unconditional love to everybody, whether they're bad to you or not, it doesn't mean you need to accept them into your circle. It doesn't mean they need to interact with you. You can say to them, you can be kind to them, you can be nice to them, you can be friendly with them, but you can just say, I just don't think that we mesh well or whatever, in part in kindness, or just deal with them in a friendly manner and move on. It's it doesn't mean you need to be friends with them. It doesn't mean you have to accept them in your life. I pointed this out to someone not too long ago, that their friend was not a good friend. And this person was accepting of their friend because, well, that's just the way they are. So yeah, but you don't have to accept their behavior. And it's one thing to accept somebody as they are, but when their behavior infringes on you, like say you have to pay for everything that they do because they don't have any money, well, why are you friends with that person? What are they bringing to the relationship? If all they do is it just provides you with companionship, but you have to pay for them every time they come out because they conveniently forgot their wallet, and they're not really, maybe they're a good laugh, or maybe they give you some companionship and you don't have to go somewhere alone. But that's kind of a low bar. So why are you allowing this person in your life? If they bring a lot of other stuff into your life, maybe paying for them all the time is not just a big deal. Or maybe it's just temporary. I guess you have to have some context, but just because you accept people as they are doesn't mean you have to accept them into your circle. That's great, girl. Don't get on that motorcycle. I'd not ever want someone to do something they didn't want to do, even if there's an accident now. What? No way. Yeah. But it's my choice. It's my choice. If I don't want to do something, if I'm not comfortable with it, it's not going to happen. Clean slate. Good to see you. It's been a while. I think I'm free from going back. Someone trying to hoover me back right now. Oh dear. Yeah, it's great when you notice that someone's trying to hoover you back and you're not even tempted to talk to that person. Then you're in a good place with dealing with the narcissists. Stephen Basin, good to see you. For me and a lot of my friends and family, we stay because it's not what we want. It's just the lesser of the two evils, especially after a long-term marriage. Thanks for the topic. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, that happens too. I mean, it happens to single people too. And what I mean by that is you get to a point where you're just kind of like, you know what? I'm quite content being single. And if somebody comes along, great, but they got to be the right person. And I'm not really all that eager to go out there and date like I was. So it can be the same sort of situation for single people. And my grandmother, she made me laugh. She was married to her husband until he died, and highly revered her husband. And so he died when they were in their 60s. And then when my grandmother was in her 80s, she was dating this gentleman, and he wanted to marry her, but she said no, for two reasons. She didn't want to give up her pension from her first husband, and she didn't want to do another man's laundry again. So she was quite content with having him as a companion, but that was it. And it was very wise because the poor man died shortly after, so she would have lost her pension. And I just find it amusing, though, because she was quite content to remain a widow. So she didn't want to get married because of social pressure or anything. She was just like, no, I'm fine. I mean, my grandmothers were very forward thinking and very, very capable, even though, well, yeah, they both worked. And they were both, but they didn't work all the time. They worked for a little bit. My Finnish grandmother, she ran a business, and my English grandmother, she wanted to be a fashion designer, so she made clothes, and she also had a couple of jobs, but she wasn't consistently working. And then she ended up flipping houses, and she renovated it herself. So she was very ahead of the times. So I'm not really surprised that she chose to stay single. But yes, you can get into a situation where it's the lesser of two evils. It's very difficult to go from a committed relationship, especially a long-term one, to being single. It's a huge life change. So I don't blame people. I mean, depending on how bad it is, I mean, it can be tolerable, but that's tolerable. It's fine. But if it's intolerable, then get out. It can be scary to make a huge life change like that, but you'll be way better off. And sometimes you can fix it if it's just tolerable and it's just like, well, we're kind of roommates. Maybe you can fix it. Maybe you can salvage it. Maybe you can't. Anyway, I totally understand where you're coming from. Rainbow Warrior, very good advice. And you're right. Boundaries are so important. I've learned and accepted I'm going to be alone a long time now. You could be. You could not be. You could meet somebody tomorrow. It may not even be important to you anymore. And it's totally fine. Whatever you choose, you want. But if it's something that's important to you, then, maybe do something to change the situation. Valentina, now I don't take it for long anymore. I've learned to set boundaries, but I'm still learning. They always show red flags. I must be way behind in the comments here. That's a round of applause. Okay, I'm glad you appreciated it, Adam. Yeah, they always show red flags. And you know what? Narcissists are textbook. So when you see one, you've seen them all, and you'll be able to detect them the more you know about them. Lana, I have to disagree. People who follow the hearts truly do not lose out. It's the ego head that gets in the way. They talk to you out of what your head. They talk to you out of what your heart feels is right or wrong. It's the ego head that gets in the way. I agree with that. I agree that your head definitely can talk you out of what your heart feels. And I agree with you that people who follow their hearts don't lose out. My point was that if you follow your heart at the expense of listening to your head, and you get entangled with somebody who's bad for you, and you're naive about it and foolish about it, you can get yourself in a bad situation. You can tie yourself to an abuser. You can tie yourself to a narcissist. You can tie yourself to somebody who takes you for a ride because you're not thinking. So that's my point. But I totally agree with your comments and what you were saying. That makes sense too. Absolutely. The ego uses a heart as a scapegoat. Sure. Rainbow Warrior, there's a TV show I like where they are in AA. The girl is learning boundaries. She's like, I no longer tolerate jerks, which means I have self-esteem, which means I'm going to die alone. Yikes. No, not necessarily. That seems like a little overcompensation, and it seems like a defense mechanism where you don't actually have boundaries. You're just making a big wall to keep everybody out. And that's not healthy. We all do it. I mean, maybe not everybody, but a lot of us do it. So, but yeah, like that's not self-esteem, and that's not boundaries. That's setting up an emotional wall. Too nice, it seems nowadays. Kindness is weakness, and it's exploited to its maximum potential. Stephen, yes. If you look at how Insta and OnlyFans gas blossomed, there are a lot of young people with healthy families, specifically a good or present father. Social media is literally, oh yeah. Yeah, it's bad. I'm not familiar with that stuff. I have a very small social media presence. Most of my social media is YouTube. I am on Twitter and Instagram, but I am not really on it. I don't really do much there. I just started posting some stuff, but I don't like Twitter. It's kind of a cesspool, and I'll target search stuff on Instagram, but I don't spend a lot of time there. I don't really understand it, and I don't know anything about OnlyFans. I know of it, but I don't know. I've never been there, and I don't really care to. From what I've heard, toxic relationships are trauma bonds. We attract the old wounds to play out and heal. A few recognize this. Totally real. Yeah, I agree with that. I just looked it up. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about rainbow parties. I know Canadians are supposed to be civilized, but yeah. Spotless leopard. Good to see you. People have to be happy single first. Too many now seem to define themselves on relationships because their friends are all married. Some unhappily. Value your freedom. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, the need to be partnered. When I go to a party or a wedding or whatever by myself, I get asked, "Where's your other half?" And it's really annoying. And I would get defensive about it. I don't feel that way anymore, but when I was in my 20s, I would get defensive about it because I get tired of hearing it. It's like, well, I'm single, so, I don't need to be partnered all the time. Whereas a lot of people felt the need that they can't go to a wedding by themselves. They can't go to, there's certain social functions that you cannot go by yourself. There's sort of pressure to have a date because they can't be seen alone. And I really didn't care. Didn't care. I was invited to my friend's wedding. I was going to go because it's my friend's wedding, and I didn't feel the need to scramble around and find someone to come with me. I just went. It was my friend's wedding. So I was there for her, not for me. Anyway, and there's a lot of freedom in being single. A lot of freedom. And I value freedom. It doesn't mean necessarily that having a partner is not freedom, but I think it depends on the partner and your relationship for sure. Just stay healthy, keep your hair combed, brush your teeth, look neat, don't talk. You'll be a woman magnet. I want a man to talk. I want them to say something and express themselves, but don't talk over a woman and don't interrupt the woman. And not on a regular basis, and don't talk for a huge period of time, like where she has no chance to interact. That's probably one of the biggest turnoffs, is if you're talking to somebody and they just talk and talk and talk, and there's no opportunity for you to say anything or put your 2 cents in. And you're supposed to be having a conversation. So, yeah, not a monologue. Rainbow Warrior. Personally, I feel like if a man doesn't pursue, then he's not that into me. I don't want to be stalked, though. I definitely don't want to be the chaser either. Yeah, that's how a lot of women feel. And from what I understand through a lot of psychologists and therapists, is that a man, when he's interested, will let you know. Like, all this game playing and nonsense is just bullshit. And there's a lot of bad dating advice information available that is all wrong. I'm more than okay with making the move, but I don't sense the interest. A lot of women I come by are already taken. Those that aren't are either seeing multiple men or into the meatheads. Okay, so there's another conflict. You are meeting multiple men, or you're into meathead. They're into meatheads, and you're into meatheads. So just change that to, I keep meeting so many single, wonderful women, and they are all showing signs of interest. I don't know who to pick. Wouldn't that be more fun? Maybe you can start saying that. It's easy for me to say because I'm sitting here on the outside and I'm not in your head, and I tell myself this stuff all the time, and that conflict, that old story keeps playing in my head, and I keep telling myself, like, you got to change the record, you got to change the record. I'm like, yeah, but there's evidence of it. Yeah, but I know it's harder than it sounds, but if you can take that sentence and throw it in the bin, and you can tell yourself there's a lot of women, a lot of beautiful, wonderful women who are available, and they're showing interest, and I don't know who to pick, then maybe things will change. Things should change if you can get rid of that old sentence. Rainbow Warrior, I was in love with this man and I felt like I had to chase him. It was horrible and he took me for granted. Yeah, see, been there. Unfortunately, I think those types are game players, or they're just unsure of how to interact with you. Maybe the men in the chat can contribute to this and explain. Depending, because I'm sure they're not all the same type of man, but there's either they're not sure how to interact with you, they're not sure that you'd be someone who likes to be chased, or I don't know. Obviously, you can't tell you specifically because I don't know your history, but generally speaking, a lot of them are game players, and the game players are not serious, and they just like the conquest, or they just like to play the game, or they're not serious about relationships, or they're narcissists, and so they give you the hot cold treatment. So yeah, that's a lot of times that happens. Adam, I kind of know I'm manifesting in a sense and self-fulfilling prophecy, but there's not many good feminine women that aren't taken around me. Again, the same statement. You are manifesting that because you're repeating the same line, the same thing about there's not many good women. So flip that and things should change. And so in a few weeks in the chat, I want to hear you say, oh my gosh, so many women everywhere. Lana, sorry, I heard doesn't want to make an effort, and there's a natural dance in dating, but many want it but don't want to work for it. If you don't put in the effort in the beginning, it's likely you won't put in the effort to maintain it either. Yeah, that's a great point, Lana. Absolutely. Also, as we know, there's not many like us out there, and that really matters. I'm on a path, and we got to go there together and share the same journey. This statement is so true, and I think that's the biggest thing. And I was playing that in my head for years because this is such a big issue of our interaction. And so the other day The other day, I came across a video that this gentleman put out, and he said, if the man of your dreams or the woman of your dreams knocked on your door and said, hello, I'm here, would you let them in? If it happened today, would you let them in? And most people said, no, I'm not ready. And I said, well, yeah, of course. If it was the man of my dreams, I would open the door and let him in for sure. Now, the thing is, so like the whole issue of that video was to move you away from not now to now, where my not now in that situation was to do with, well, I don't want to deal with dating now because I don't want to deal with the NPCs. I don't want to deal with the narcissists. I don't want to deal with, all of the riffraff. I don't want to deal with that. But if the man of my dreams was to show up, drop in my living room, so to speak, yeah, I'd say yeah. Because it was the man of my dreams. I'm not going to let him go away. But the way I was looking at it was, I got to contend with that ocean of not the man of my dreams, and in order to find him, which is the way I was looking at it before. And so I switched that to, if he shows up, for sure, I'd let him in. But so in switching that, I was more focused on manifesting the man that I want and not having to contend with any of the other people, the other, NPCs or whatnot. And knowing that law of attraction works and law of assumption works, then it is possible for that to happen, because he should just drop into my living room, basically, like not literally, but you know what I'm saying? So if we switch our mindset from there's not many of us out there, we're in a chat with, 24, 25 people, 30 people, sometimes 35, whatever. So there's some of us who know what we know, and it gets bigger every day. So there's got to be more who we don't run into. And because law of attraction works, law of assumption works, it's got to happen somehow. This person can manifest into your life tomorrow. So that shifted my mindset a little bit. And so hopefully anybody listening who is thinking similarly, maybe that will help you shift your mindset as well, if that's something that you want. If it's not, don't worry about it. Okay. With men that care a lot, they protect how they show they care in the beginning if they've been hurt or it's been taken for granted. Okay. Thank you. The man I was chasing told me something similar to what you said, Adam. He said never again, and he learned. Yeah, if you get burned, that's tough. It's tough. Rainbow Warrior, he said that he does care, but he's not letting himself feel feelings. Yikes. How can he care if he doesn't let himself feel feelings? Unfortunately, most of us are walking coping mechanisms for wounds that others have left. Hard to tell if he was telling the truth or playing with me. Doesn't seem normal. I hate the word normal. Maybe I should reword that. There's so many free women out there, though. They just have cats. Hey, I have a cat, and she's awesome. Yes, I go back and forth too, but I've been trying to be more positive. Hot, cold treatment, that's what he did to me. It was so frustrating. You're welcome, Adam. Rainbow Warrior. Ironically, that's how I met this guy I was in love with. He literally walked into my living room. I thought for sure it was meant to be. Well, you got to make sure. Yeah. I mean, that's what I was like. I joke about it. Well, he's got to literally drop in my living room, but you never know. It could be the Pure Later delivery guy. It could be, it could be the Bell cable guy. He could be installing my internet. I don't know, but I mean, that's one way that they literally walk into your living room. But again, if you know what you're looking for in another person and a relationship and your lifestyle and everything, and they're a good fit, then maybe they're the right person for you. But I would also lead off with flat or globe. And yes or no. And several other qualifying criteria to know if you're in the right territory before you even engage in conversation. Funny, if some hugely obese bloke fell through your ceiling as you're saying this, yeah, it'd be fun. It'd be funny. I don't mind a little fluffiness. I have a cat colony. Yeah, little fluffiness is awesome. Yeah. 8 anti-V, but when I mentioned flat Earth, his eyes glazed over like a deer in the headlights. Yeah, well, then you know he's not the right one. I mean, oh, yeah. I don't know. I started thinking about this because I don't know about you, but we have a tendency to constantly look ahead, to feel like, okay, I'm here, now I have to get here. Now I'm here, I have to get here. And we constantly feel we have to change things about our life and about ourselves, or grow, change, develop, get more. And it is ingrained in us from this ego-based society that I've been working on purging, but I've noticed it creep up lately, and it has to do partly with ascension in the sense that, again, it's another ladder, and yet this ladder is automatic. So there really isn't anything for you to do because all of the things that you need to do are presented to you when you need them. But there's still this sense of urgency. There's this sense of, okay, well, when's the next one? When's the next one? Where's the next level? I'm impatient. I want to learn more. I want to obtain more. I want more knowledge. I want more insights. There's partly an addiction in the sense because you get such a rush out of getting that connection, and the mundane is a little bit blah, but it's more to do with this sort of race mentality, ladder mentality, hierarchy. So anyway, my point is lately I've been feeling like, well, this idea of I'll feel better when, or I need to get here first, then I'll be able to do this, or that sort of contingency feeling. And so yesterday I thought, well, what if I'm just content with where I'm at now? What if I stop looking ahead? What if I stop looking to obtain more or get more or worrying about the future and just be okay with where I'm at now? And I was in that place for a while, but you kind of get to, like, okay, say for example, you're homeless. So when you're homeless, your main focus is getting out of being homeless. So you get an apartment. Okay, great. You got an apartment and you got a job. All right, now what? Now you want to get your own house. You want to buy a house. So you work really hard to make money to get the house. So then you buy the house. It's like, okay, now I've got the house. Now I want to get married. Okay, so then you go and try and find someone to marry. And then you get married and you're like, okay, now I want children. And it's constant, like one thing after the other, after the other. And, you know, this idea, this spiritual idea of having no desires, I've been ruminating on that because I kind of go back and forth on it. But if you are wholly, completely content with where you are now, and most people are not content with where they are, there's always seemingly something we desire. It's like you look at what you lack and then you desire that. And it's like, okay, well, I need a rug for my living room, or I need to paint the walls, or, you know, there's always a job that needs doing. Oh, I've got to spring clean. You know, it can be anything. It can be small things, just like I got to go grocery shopping because I have no food. When is it enough? When are we content with what we have? When do we stop looking ahead and stop trying to, you know, run this treadmill that we're on all the time? What are your thoughts on that? He's anti-V. Oh, I already did that. Anyway, always wanted a cat man. They always say they like cats, but you know they really don't. When my cat jumps on their lap and they have this look of horror on their face, but try to smile through it. Eesh. You know, I never really understood that "are you a cat person or a dog person" question, because, you know, for the most part, I was allergic, so it just didn't make sense to me. I wasn't someone who had dogs, so I didn't know what it was like to have a dog. I didn't know whether I liked dogs or not. And so I was always open to the idea of dogs, but I wasn't a dog person, I guess. I had cats and I had rabbits. So to me, I realized now I like dogs, but I prefer cats. I prefer cats because they take care of themselves for the most part. I prefer cats because you don't have to take them for walks every day. I prefer cats because they're cuddly and soft, whereas dogs are their fur's a bit rough. Most breeds of dogs, their fur is a bit rough. Dogs don't smell good. Cats smell wonderful. So, and cats are quiet for the most part. Cats are quiet. Dogs bark. So there's a lot of things that I prefer about cats. It's not to say that, you know, if I met somebody who had a dog, I would be like, well, I can't be with you because you're a dog person. No, I mean, I like dogs and I wouldn't mind having a dog. It's just I prefer cats. But a lot of people are like, you're a cat person, forget it. I don't understand that. When we realize how many days lie in front of us, we can calm down and take our time. Yeah, I guess so. It's all about perspective. I'm addicted to dating for free. Thank you guys for this chat. We've built a whole bookcase. Oh, okay. Cool. This is your channel. Go ahead, girl. Cat seems spiritually in tune. Yeah, perhaps. Maybe they do. My cat does yoga with me. She likes to do yoga. I changed it from downward dog to downward kitty. She really enjoys the yoga mat. Anyhow, it's been 3 hours. I'm all talked out. This has been a great conversation. Thank you very much. If somebody has been taking notes on timestamps and subject changes, if you could leave it in the comments section for me, I really appreciate it, so I can put the chapter breaks in the what's it called, in the description box. So that would be really helpful. And if there's somebody who would like to do that on a weekly basis, please let me know. That'd be really great, really helpful. Rainbow Warrior, I dated this man who brought his 2 dogs over and they completely ransacked my house. My house was filthy and in shambles in 2 hours. Oh, that's disrespectful. It should be a deal breaker, but yeah, that's disrespectful. If somebody brings dogs to your house and it ruins your house, first of all, he should have his dogs better trained than that. And that's a sign that the person doesn't have their dogs under control. So yeah, it's disrespectful of your place. And once he saw that it was ruining your house, he should have taken the dogs outside or left. It's just wrong. I missed most of this, so I'll have to look at the first 2 hours at some point this week. All right. Thanks, TrueLove. I've only been able to participate in the latter end. I'll sort something out with work. You don't have to. Whenever you're around, if you can take notes, I'd really appreciate it. There's just timestamp and subject change. It doesn't have to be, complicated. I just need help with it because I can't focus on taking notes while talking and reading comments. I'm already so far behind on reading comments as it is. Every time I take my horse to a woman's house, she won't let me in with it. Well, that's really unfortunate. Maybe you should take a hippo next time. Maybe you should be more amenable to that. Hippos are a little bit easier to tolerate and, might have trouble getting a hippo through the door though. I always wanted a farm where horses come into my room in the window every morning. That'd be cute. Well, if you want to, Adam, I would really appreciate it, but you don't have to. So thank you very much, everybody, for participating today. A bit of an unusual subject, but you know what? It was very interesting. It's interesting for me, and I really enjoyed your comments. And we don't really talk too much about relationships and dating here, which I've wanted to talk about it because it's important to talk about dating and relationships for people like us, truthers, because it's different. It's not the same. And I think we need to look at relationships differently too, as a society and as just in general, in order to have healthier relationships. And this world is not built for healthy relationships. It's built to have conflict and problems, and there's not a lot of help or support or insights that are accurate and helpful in navigating relationships in a healthy way. There's a lot of representation of what's not healthy, especially because it's drama. And, you can sort of derive from it what's healthy, but it's better to have something modeled after a healthy relationship in order to figure that out. So, yeah, helping to contribute to that through your comments and discussion is very helpful for all of us. So thank you. You've all been really great, and I've really enjoyed your comments, and I've really enjoyed talking to you. So I will talk to you again next week. See you in the Discord. See you in the comments on future videos, past videos. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.